Margaret Ellis had built her empire from nothing. At 42, she stood at the helm of Veriton Technologies, a billion-dollar company she had grown with her own hands, her own sleepless nights, and her own relentless determination. She wore her success like armor, sharp blazers, steady eyes, and a voice that never trembled in boardrooms, full of men who had doubted her from the very beginning. But success, she had learned, always attracted enemies. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please stay with us and watch this story till the end. If there is any mistake or shortcoming in our story, please kindly forgive us and support us with your love, patience, and encouragement. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories, and tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching from. Your support means everything to us. On a cold Tuesday morning in November, Margaret stepped into the elevator of Veriton's 30-floor headquarters, coffee in hand, mind already racing through the agenda of the day. She pressed the button for the 28th floor and exhaled slowly, grateful for 30 seconds of silence. The doors were almost closed when a hand shot through and stopped them. 3 men stepped in, senior executives, all of them. Richard Holt, the head of acquisitions, James Burr, chief financial officer, and Derek Cole, the board's longest-standing member. Margaret nodded professionally. The doors closed. What happened next was something she would never forget. Richard spoke first, his voice low and deliberately casual, as if they were simply discussing the weather. You know, Margaret, the board is reconsidering the Q4 leadership structure. James folded his arms. There's a feeling, and a strong one, that certain decisions have been made too emotionally, too personally. Derek didn't even look at her. Some people think it's time for a steadier hand, a different kind of leadership. Margaret's jaw tightened. She knew exactly what they were doing. They had chosen this moment, this small, enclosed, private space, and to make her feel small, trapped, powerless, the elevator hummed between floors. Her heart was pounding, but she refused to let her face show it. She was searching for words, for the right response, for a way to defend herself without sounding defensive. Then the elevator stopped at the 14th floor. The doors slid open. A man stepped in, wearing a grey uniform, pushing a small supply cart. It was George, the building's janitor. He was 61 years old, with white hair at his temples and calloused hands that had cleaned these floors for over 2 decades. He gave a simple nod as he stepped in, pressing the button for the next floor, clearly just catching a quick ride. He had barely been inside 10 seconds when he glanced at the 3 men, then at Margaret, and something in the air told him everything. A janitor learns to read rooms. George had spent 22 years watching the powerful and the powerless move through this building. He had heard things in empty hallways. He had seen things in the quiet hours before sunrise. He knew exactly what kind of silence this was. He looked directly at Margaret Ellis, not with pity, not with awkwardness, but with the calm, quiet certainty of a man who has seen enough of life to know the difference between right and wrong. And he said simply and clearly 6 words. She built this place, we know. The elevator fell completely silent. Richard's smug expression flickered. James unfolded his arms. Derek finally looked up, and then looked away. Those 6 words carried no anger, no aggression, no political maneuvering. They carried something far more powerful, truth, spoken without fear, by someone who had absolutely nothing to gain from saying it. The doors opened at the 15th floor. George calmly pushed his cart out, gave one last respectful nod to Margaret, and disappeared down the hallway. The 3 executives said nothing for the remaining floors. When the elevator reached 28, they filed out quietly, without another word about leadership structures or emotional decisions. Margaret stood alone as the doors closed again, taking her the rest of the way up. Her eyes were burning, not from sadness but from something else entirely. From the unexpected, extraordinary experience of being truly seen, not by a board member, not by an investor, not by the press or the shareholders, by George, a man who mopped floors and carried supplies and was invisible to most people in that building, and who had, in 6 words, done what no one else had been willing to do. He had told the truth when it was inconvenient. He had spoken up when silence would have been so much easier. He had reminded 3 powerful men that dignity is not determined by title, or salary, or the size of one's office. The following week, Margaret introduced a new company-wide recognition program specifically designed to honor employees at every level, not just those in corner offices. The first award was presented at an all-hands meeting in front of the entire company. The first recipient was George. He stood at the front of the room, visibly uncomfortable with the attention, his hands clasped in front of him. And when the room erupted in applause, he simply nodded, the same way he always did, because that was who he was. A man of very few words, but when he chose to use them, they changed everything. Kindness doesn't always come wearing a suit. Sometimes it comes wearing a grey uniform and pushing a cart, and it is more powerful than any boardroom ever built. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Kindness True Stories, where every story reminds you that ordinary people do extraordinary things every single day. Turn on the bell so you never miss a story that matters.